morning. Welcome to the Saturday Six. I'm Rob Bauer, and I'm the econometrician behind Beta Rank. Saturday Six, if you're just tuning in for the first time, it's where we run through 6 games that are happening this Saturday from an advanced stats perspective. And we try to do it pretty quickly, 5 minutes a game. This isn't game day. We're not going to tell you, heartbreaking stories where you break out the tissues. But we have a good slate today. This is a really good pick of games. After last week was a little bit of in some ways, I joked about it, calling it the doldrums a little bit. I mean, there were, as we got into conference play, and week 3 wasn't that great either. This week's a really good week of college football games in front of us. Games that for this season, it doesn't look like, maybe other than Georgia, and again with the early season data, Georgia looks really good right now. We will see how they grade out as we get to a few more games in, but we're likely going into full in-season data after this week in Beta Rank. But Georgia looks really good. Everybody else looks good, but not great. And that's a big difference from the last couple seasons in college football. Going back to 2018, 2019, Oklahoma's offense really broke out in 2017. I jokingly or somewhat seriously call it the era of big offense, but you start having offenses putting up really huge numbers in college football, 2017 onward. We don't have teams that are grading out in that range. And that's interesting because those teams, when you're that good, you're just going to blow the doors off of most anyone on your schedule in the regular season. And then, you're like, and unless you're like 2019 LSU and Alabama, where you have, those two teams in the same conference, in the same division, you're not likely going to take an in-season loss. Even if you turn the ball over, 4 times, you're still likely to get away with a win against most of the teams you're playing. That's that changes the dynamic in college football and makes it really almost like a postseason tournament only, because you're not going to see the top teams really challenged, and the in-season schedule is not really going to matter much until you get to an opportunity to see them against, another juggernaut. And really in some, even in, like 2019, where you did have 4 great, you really legitimately did have 4 great teams in college football in 2019. Of course, Tua got hurt. That really hurt Alabama. But, you're going to have instances like even in 2019, because Alabama doesn't make the playoff. Oklahoma does. Oklahoma's defense wasn't there. You had 4 great teams in college football that year, but only 3 of them make the playoff, of course. And LSU isn't really challenged. Of course, they did have to play Alabama already, so it's not as if they had a cakewalk, but they're not really in theory challenged until they get up against Clemson in the title game. And Clemson didn't have a juggernaut offense. They just had one of the best defenses we've ever measured in Beta Rank. But, a great defense doesn't stack up against like a 2019 LSU offense. It does open, but it opens things up to where teams even though we have teams like, and we're a game we're going to cover like Alabama and Ole Miss. Alabama's a substantial favorite in the model in this. They're a favorite in Vegas by 2 touchdowns. Some turnovers and Alabama could be in trouble in this game. And that's a little unusual, I think. It's a little unusual for what we're used to in college football. It's not unusual for what we've, seen in the past in college football. So it does make add a little bit more intrigue to a regular season that in some ways for like the juggernaut teams had become a little ho-hum in a lot of ways, despite all of the very conservative calls for the people that just love the college football postseason and regular season as is, and the college football regular season in a lot of ways for the teams at the very tip top, Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson, in the last few years had just been, a little bit of a perfunctory, and now it's all of these teams, with the possible exception of Georgia, could really take a loss at any time. So it'll be interesting to see who shapes up. I mean, and Clemson really already has taken some losses at any time, and Ohio State that defense looks terrible. So let's hop in. I'm excited to cover these games. We've got some really good games on the schedule today. Yeah, I'm gonna. I'm not gonna. I can't pause this to check the audio, but we had some audio issues on the podcast. I checked the audio a couple times before I started this. I also went back and re-listened to large chunks again of last week's audio, which was also good. So crossing my fingers here. It's the technical issues that drive you totally bonkers. First game on the docket, as we sort of referenced here, is Alabama and Ole Miss. You got Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban, of course. They know each other a bit. There was that fun ESPN piece on them this week, on their relationship, and in some ways too, what one of the funny parts was what Lane did in the game last year. But this should be an interesting game. Alabama's offense is again pretty good. They're sitting at number 2 overall in beta rank right now. Number one in drive efficiency. Your offensive play caller here is Bill O'Brien. 9 in explosive drives. I mean, these are all terrific numbers. They've been really effective throwing the ball around. This is a very, very good offense. They're not quite in the realm that they were last season or in 2019, but still an offense that is going to get up and down the field and put up points. They get a defense that I'm interested to see where they grade out once we've got full, a little more in-season data and without the projection. DJ Durkin is your defensive coordinator here. He hasn't really done a good job up to this point. But as you can see, the top line number here for the defense and the offensive numbers, these do have preseason projection weight in them. All the other numbers for drive efficiency, explosive drives, play efficiency, negative drives don't. So those are the raw numbers that would make up a regular, fully in season beta rank. So for Ole Miss, you can see they're probably grading out somewhere in the high 30s, low 40s, maybe. If you had the full in-season data in there right now. They've done okay in drive efficiency and explosive drives. Their play efficiency, and all of these are controlling for opponent and field position, they're hurting a little more there. And negative drives in particular, they're not causing enough 3 and outs and turnovers. They're not really doing enough negative stuff, to the offense. But no big run pass split. I'm interested to see in particular, this defense hasn't, they weren't good last season. I'm interested to see what they look like this year. This Alabama offense, of course, is going to tell us a lot about where Ole Miss is really going to grade out, towards the end of the year. But this is where Alabama's real advantage is in the game here, because on the other side, Ole Miss is rolling offensively, right? You've got, I believe it's a sort of I'm not sure. I think Kiffin's calling the plays, but Jeff Lebby's your offensive coordinator. He came over as part of, he'd been part of Baylor's offense with Art Briles. Really, really solid numbers for this offense. Number 2 in drive efficiency, putting together drives to put up points. 4 in explosive drive, lots of big plays. 14 in play efficiency. This is the least important of the core 4 beta rank metrics, but their yards per play, controlling for opponent and field position is also quite good. Number 1 in negative drives. They are not letting opponents, force them into bad situations. A little bit of a run pass play. I mean, I think this is interesting because Matt Corral is having a really big year, but you can see the influence that Lane Kiffin has brought in on this team with Lebby. They've been pretty good at running the ball as well. This Alabama team, they're getting held up. This defense is getting held up a little bit by the projection right now. Number 8 but if you start looking under the hood, some of these numbers aren't great. 78 in drive efficiency right now in the raw numbers. I mean, I expect these to pick up a little bit, particularly after we get to see them at Ole Miss, but this is a big question coming into this game for me. Is this Alabama defense a victim of some, random, noise that we've seen in these games, or some, odd data that we have in? thus far, and we just need some more better data to be able to smooth it out, and to be able to appropriately rank the opponents that they've played up to this point. But this ain't great. I mean, 78 in drive efficiency, 29 in explosive drives is okay. If you're Alabama, you're expecting these numbers to all be in the top 10. Negative drive 78. They don't have a really big run pass split, but this is, if you have a sneaking suspicion, and if you're, looking for reasons to believe Ole Miss can win this game, it is that Alabama really hasn't lived up to projections yet defensively, and that they have some work out still to do, ahead of them. Now, it may be, of course, that, like what I said, is just a small sample size issue, and that we're not appropriately rating some of the teams Alabama has played against yet, and that we get a little more data in, and we're going to do that. This week's important because we start to really, this is one of the really big mover weeks where teams move around in the model towards where they will likely sit for, most of the season, towards the end of the season. We've got Alabama with a 93% win probability, 20-point favorite in beta rank. Again, a lot of that's on projection, so we'll see how this one shakes out. This should be a pretty good game. If Alabama finishes, negative on turnovers, Ole Miss is going to be nipping right at their heels. Cincinnati, Notre Dame. This one's going to be fun. We got Luke Fickell, Brian Kelly. One of the subplots, of course, is that Marcus Freeman is your new defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. Really good pickup for them. He was the defensive coordinator at Cincinnati under Fickell. One of the other interesting things is that the offense, which had been holding Cincinnati back in some ways, and Mike Denbrock's your OC here, they seem to have figured things out a little bit last season as well. Desmond Ridder is certainly playing better. Number 5 in drive efficiency right now. I mean, they've been able to put together some drives to put up points, controlling for opponent field position. And Indiana does have a pretty decent defense. So this Cincinnati team, I think, can move the ball. Number 5 in explosive drives. They've been able to do some pretty good things there. Their negative drives number is something to watch out for. Too many 3-and-outs, too many turnovers. This is something. I mean, they've allowed the offense or the defense to punch them in the mouth a little bit. They do lean a little more towards the pass, not a lot. What's interesting here is Notre Dame. They're still grading out. A little bit. I mean, they haven't exactly played a murderer's row of offenses up to this point. So getting a Florida State offense that's, running face first into a wall every opportunity they get. I mean, and the same goes for Wisconsin. This game should be interesting for how we end up grading out the Notre Dame defense over the season. This will be some good additional data to get in for them as well. What they've been good at is negative drives, forcing bad things. I mean, and that Wisconsin utter meltdown in the fourth quarter last week, where Notre Dame basically salted the game away and then turned it into a blowout because Wisconsin made mistake after mistake after mistake against the Notre Dame defense. They've been better against the pass than they've been against the run. Again, I'm excited to see how it shakes out in this game, but up to this point, they have a pretty decent run pass split, and run pass for the defense is calculated at the margin. So this isn't that they've just given up a lot more pass yard or given up a lot more rush yards or something like that. Teams have been more effective running the ball against Notre Dame than they have throwing the ball against the Irish thus far this season. Again, we'll see how that shakes out, a little bit after this week as well. On the other side of the ball, you got Tommy Rees versus Mike Tressel as your new defensive coordinator for the Bearcats. The Notre Dame offense is interesting. I mean, they've opened it up a little bit. They sit at 15, right now, and they would, this game will be another good measure for them, I think, too. They had a decent game last week against Wisconsin. Not great. I mean, you're not going to have a lot of great games against a defense like Wisconsin, but it kind of tells us where this Notre Dame offense might end up shaking out, right? They've been decent at drive efficiency. Their explosive drives number is pretty good. 34 in play efficiency. What they've struggled with too is, 3-and-outs, turnovers, going backwards. What's different for Notre Dame this season though is they've definitely leaned in on throwing the ball. Number 5 in effective pass, 89 in effective rush. They they, you know, with Jack Cohn back there, they do have confidence. I think that they can sling the ball around. The Cincinnati defense, they're pretty good. You know, they may not be where they were last season, at least as far as the data sits right now. But after this game, they may very well be, after we have a chance to, again, like a little extra data to sort of, you know, shuffle around the rank order and get a feel for them. They've struggled where they have struggled a little bit thus far has been drive efficiency. Teams have been able to get together long drives to put up points against this team. Explosive drives, you know, they're a little better, but where they really shine is their play efficiency. They're not giving up a lot of yards. You know, they're keeping the yards per play manageable. They're forcing 3 and outs. They're forcing turnovers. They've been better against the pass than they've been against the run. Something certainly to keep an eye on here. This is, and I'm interested. I mean, this matchup here, I think is really interesting because you get Freeman, you know, against an offense that he's certainly familiar with. So in some ways that's an advantage for the Irish. And we also get to see, how it's working out with a new defensive coordinator for the Bearcats, because they've been a defense first team. I mean, the offense, Luke Fickell built this team defense first. And the offense has sort of been playing catch up. It looks like they've gotten there a little bit. So this should be a fun one. So Beta Rank Vegas has this as Cincinnati as a slight favorite at 2 points, I believe, on the road. Beta Rank has this as a toss up between Notre Dame and Cincinnati. I think Notre Dame is like a 0.34 point favorite because of home field advantage in Beta Rank right now. So again, this is a great one to watch as well. What is Michigan? We're going to find out a lot about Michigan in this game, because offensively they've put together. I mean, in Michigan's sort of been hovering out there. Josh Gaddis is your OC under Jim Harbaugh. They've been hovering for years, kind of in the top 25, top 20 offensive range. And in the quote unquote era of big offense, that's not where you want to be. If you want to be, if you have the kinds of aspirations Michigan really has, you need to be in a better offensive place than that. This season, it does look like they've taken a step forward offensively, but we got to see. I mean, we got to see them. And this game is really, I think, going to give us the best read on Michigan that we've had thus far. Washington really struggled with A and B gap runs, and Michigan seemed to have just figured out that was the key, and then turned the key, and that was it. Washington just flat out didn't adjust. I mean, they didn't adjust the defense at all. They left their safeties in the 2 high safety look. Michigan ran all over them. So this game, you get a Wisconsin defense that's actually pretty good under Jim Leonhard. But what Michigan's been good at is drive efficiency. Their drive efficiency number is really good. Less good at explosive drives, something to keep an eye on here. They're probably going to need to hit some big plays against this Wisconsin defense if they want to put up a really big offensive number. The play efficiency and negative drives are solid. Number 1 in effective rush. This has been a really terrific rushing offense thus far. 82 in effective pass. You know what you've got to do if you want to slow down Michigan. But if you do sell out, and I don't know that Michigan does have to sell out. I mean, I don't know that Wisconsin does have to sell out to stop the run. They may be able to, contain Michigan's run out of base without having to make adjustments. If that's the case, then Michigan's going to have to throw the ball to be able to win the game. If, this becomes a can they do that type game. Because Jim Leonhard's defense, 9 in drive efficiency, 17 in explosive drives. These are really good numbers. You expect in some ways, some of these might even improve, after this game, and we get some more data on them as well. Negative drives. They forced a lot of, they forced a lot of bad things to happen to offenses. Number 2 in, effective rush, 16 in effective pass. I mean, the strengths of this Michigan team, this is going to be a strength on strength type game of watching this Wisconsin team, this Michigan team go at it on this side of the ball. The other side of the ball, though, hoo boy. So Paul Chryst is your play caller, as well as being the head coach here. He took back over play calling duties. And he did. I mean, Paul Chryst is a good play caller, in which Wisconsin usually sits somewhere around like the 8, 9, 10, range offensively. They are just in a ditch offensively right now. it's kind of amazing to see, because in a lot of ways, like, the quarterback's not asked to do a lot in this Wisconsin, scheme, and Mertz is just blowing it. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say like the quarterback's not asked to do a lot, but he's not necessarily the main dish. The Wisconsin run game is the main dish, and Mertz is just, I mean, they are really struggling throwing the football. I'm surprised Mertz still has this job and they haven't tried someone else. So 96 in drive efficiency. They struggle to put together long drives to put up points. 83 in explosive drives. They are struggling to put up big plays. Decent play efficiency. Their negative drives number is just awful, and you could see a lot of that last week. Bad decisions, 3 and outs. 36 in effective rush, 88 in effective pass. I mean, a pretty considerable split. Part of what's holding this, I mean, if you can imagine, Wisconsin projected to have a top 20 offense coming into this year. They're only at 71 because of that projection. They would be somewhere around 100 in all likelihood in beta rank right now without the preseason projection. That's rough. The defense for Michigan, they've certainly improved after just the utter disaster that they had last season. Your new defensive coordinator for them here is Mike McDonald. They're number 7 right now in beta rank. Number 2 in drive efficiency is really their best number, but they have given up some big plays, 50 in explosive drives, controlling for opponent and field position again. Their play efficiency is okay at 48. Their negative drives number, at 49 isn't great either. No big run pass split. I'm interested to see. I mean, I don't think that this Wisconsin team is going to test. This offense has been really, really bad for Wisconsin, but it's a real, one of the things to keep an eye on here is what is this versus expectations? Because that'll tell you where the model expects this to go versus say how it goes will be how the model adjusts, right? I mean, also there are things, that take place on other football fields for opponents you've played that will also lead to model adjustment too. But for this Wisconsin team and this Michigan defense, is Wisconsin able to move the ball? If they are, then maybe they're better than we thought, and maybe this Michigan's defense is worse than where it currently goes. So if you're Michigan, you really do want to, and you're likely to win this game. Michigan's got an 81% win probability on the road, 10-point favorite in beta rank, 9.99. If you the takeaway that you want to be able to have is along with the win is that you shut down this Wisconsin offense. If you're not able to shut down this Wisconsin offense, that might be a sign that this defense is a little more leaky than we've thought up to this point. This is kind of the fun under the radar game that there's so many good games this week. We didn't do a group of 5 game, which we normally do, but I wouldn't want to leave off a game like this. This is a really fun game right now. So you got Dan Mullen and Mark Stoops. I almost said Mike Stoops. Mark Stoops. He's your head coach at Kentucky. This Florida team looks like they've put it together, reasonably well offensively. Of course, they're one of the teams that lost a lot, of production off of last season. A lot of teams didn't, but what this Florida offense has been really good at is explosive drives, putting together big plays. They don't take a lot of negative, they don't have a lot of negative things done to them by the opposing defense. That negative drives number is pretty solid. Their drive efficiency could use some work, stringing together plays, successful plays, and turning them into a drive, turning that drive into points. They have a pretty big run pass split, number 5 in effective rush, 83 in effective pass. This is not, they got some work to do throwing the football around, but Mullen's been pretty inventive and creative in finding ways to make sure that the run, and Brian Johnson, your OC, they've been pretty creative at finding ways to keep the offense going, running the football. In comes Kentucky. The defense isn't, the defense, Kentucky had a full-on faceplant last year. I mean, the offense really struggled more than we were expecting. They, of course, brought in a new offensive coordinator. Brad White's your DC here. But the defense struggled a bit as well. It looks like they've rebounded. These are some pretty solid numbers. Even without the projection, this is going to grade out as a top 20 defense number 15 in beta rank right now. Their worst number, which is sort of middle of the road, power 5, is this drive efficiency number. Teams have been able to put together drives to put up points on them, but they've done a good job containing explosive drives. Their play efficiency is pretty good at 12. Negative drives at 10 is solid. They've been able to force 3 and outs, force turnovers. A little bit better against the run pass than they are against the run. That's something to keep an eye on, because Florida, of course, leans a little towards the run. And Florida has some some athleticism at quarterback. That's something to keep an eye on as Florida's able to bring an extra rusher potentially in. On the other side of the football, this is where it gets fascinating. I use fascinating a lot. Anyway, Liam Cohen is your offensive coordinator here for Kentucky, coming over from the Rams organization. They are 35 right now in beta rank. This is a big improvement over where they were last season. Even though you'd call this like a middle of the road power 5 offense. Nothing particularly special. It's an improvement over where they were, and that's good for Kentucky. 32 in drive efficiency. So they're all of these numbers are grading out kind of in this range. That gives you some confidence in what you're going to see today in all likelihood. They've kind of, they've been decent in explosive drives, putting up big plays. Their play efficiency is probably their best number, even though it's the least important of the 4 metrics. 20 overall. Their yards per play, controlling for opponent field position, is pretty good. Negative drives, again, they're kind of all falling in the same range of like good, not great. 25 in effective rush, 58 in effective pass. You expect this. Kentucky's certainly, been more of a rushing team these last couple seasons, and they certainly have the personnel more lined up for that. But what Cohen's brought in is a bit more of a sophisticated passing attack. It's this Kentucky offense. I'm excited to see them against a Florida defense that, well, they're the projection's helping them a bit. 11 in beta rank overall. That 12 in drive efficiency right now is far and away their best number, limiting teams' ability to put together long drives to put up points. 36 in explosive drives. They've been able to control big plays, but not to a great extent thus far against a lot of teams. Where they struggle, they haven't put up enough 3 and outs, not enough turnovers. They've been really good against the run. 4 in effective rush, 57 in effective pass. Some of this may be that you have a function of schedule for what we've had from them so far. That they've just played teams that are really good throwing the football. We'll get to see this tested in this game. For this Florida defense, Florida recruits really well. Todd Grantham has not really put it together defensively for them in the past couple seasons. Last year the defense really lagged where the offense was. I'm a little skeptical of this defense. I think you take out the projection number, you're likely talking about like a mid-20s defense. Kentucky should be able to have a shot to move the ball in this game. Florida's on the road. Florida's a 65% win probability, 4-point favorite in beta rank. This could be a really fun game. I think this one's, I think people are underestimating Kentucky just a little bit in this game, but we'll see. The advanced stats, the early read on the in-season data we have right now could be wrong, and we'll see if this Florida defense is actually better than these underlying numbers without the projection show them to be right now. Wow, the team that wins this has the early driver's seat in the Pac-12 South, which before the season sounded like a really fun place to be, with like Utah looking pretty good and USC we thought, always has talent and they might sort of figure some of it out. And now it kind of looks like it's just going to come down to these two teams. So Chip Kelly's your head coach of UCLA. Herm Edwards, of course, is your head coach of ASU. UCLA has been pretty good offensively. Their offense grades out right now at number 18 in beta rank. You can see there is some projection there holding that up. Their drive efficiency number is certainly something they have to work on, stringing together drives to put up points. They've been better at explosive drives, really good at play efficiency. Their yards per play, controlling for opponent field positions, really solid. A little less good at negative drives, What's interesting though is that Dorian Thompson-Robinson, like they are a somewhat more effective passing team. They are a very good running team. They have a sophisticated run scheme. Chip Kelly, but what Kelly brought back from the NFL too was, a different passing attack than he used to run back in the day. Expect to see a lot of tight end and, passes to the tight end in this game. Thompson-Robinson had a heck of a game against Stanford last week. This is going to be a better defense than they faced last week against the Cardinal. Arizona State grades out at 35. Marvin Lewis is your defensive coordinator. Yeah, that Marvin Lewis is your defensive coordinator for the Sun Devils. Under the hood, the numbers are, teams have been able to put together long drives to put up points against the Sun Devil defense. They haven't played an overwhelming schedule to this point. So this is really going to be a step up and challenge for them. Number 52 in explosive drives, 50 in play efficiency. Where they've been best is it, causing havoc, turnovers, 3 and outs, causing, bad things to happen to the offense. Now, what's interesting in this game is Jermaine Lowell, their defensive tackle, is out for the season. He was out before the season even started. They do have a run-pass split that you don't like coming into a game where, UCLA is going to try to run the football at you. 29 in effective pass, but 50 in effective rush. I think UCLA has a little bit of an advantage in this game. In particular, if they're willing to use Dorian Thompson-Robinson as a runner, you like that, fit there for that to work. On the other side of the ball, the Sun Devil offense is actually pretty good. Now, their drive efficiency number is not great, but again, it's been a little bit of a weird schedule for them, where they've either kind of run face first into a wall and done a lot of dumb things, like at BYU, where they really shot themselves in the foot again and again and again. Or they haven't played a really, their other competition up at this point hasn't been great. You get, however, like a really explosive offense, 14 in explosive drives, number 38 in play efficiency. That's a solid number. Not a lot of turnovers or 3 and outs with negative drives. This is Zach Hill's your offensive coordinator here. They'd switched over from running a little bit more of an air raid type concept in Daniel's first season into running like a version of that Boise offense. What's really interesting and what's opened this offense up this season, and something we haven't seen from Daniels in his first 2 seasons in college football, is they run him this year. Daniels is a regular ball carrier here, and 19 in effective rush, 55 in effective pass. They haven't gotten the running backs going as much as you would have expected, at least against like decent competition, BYU and their one game against Colorado. They haven't gotten the running backs going as much as you would have expected. Daniels has carried a substantial bit of the load in the running game, and that's opened things up and kept this offense going. It's going to be interesting to see here because you get a UCLA defense under Jerry Azzinaro, and some of the numbers aren't bad. If you, again, like as we look under the hood to where the model would be at with no, projection in there, their drive efficiency is at 61. You have been able to put together some drives to put up points against this team, but they've been better at controlling explosive drives at number 20. 19 in play efficiency is a solid number right there. They've been pretty good at, controlling opponents' yards per play. Not a ton of negative drives, not a ton of 3 and outs, not a turnovers, but their real big split here is they're a lot better stopping the run and that front 7 than they have been against the pass. And that's something, ASU has a terrific bunch of wide receivers that they've recruited in, but Daniels is not the most accurate downfield passer, but he generally makes good decisions with the football. And that's something like if you're making good decisions with the ball, not turning it over, you can accept that you might have a low completion percentage downfield a little bit. So this is an interesting game. Beta Rank has UCLA as a favorite at home, 65%, again, 4.84, points favored in Beta Rank spread, naive spread. I like UCLA in this game, but only because I think the defense is a little bit better and I think their offense is a little more developed. And I just don't think ASU is set up to stop the run in the way that, and I think if ASU has to make changes in the defense, if they have to bring down a safety, in to help control the run game, I think I think UCLA is actually set up to potentially hurt them more in the game. So, but a turnover here or there, and ASU walks out of here with a win. So this should be a fun one to watch too, to cap off the day late at night on FS1. This one's an interesting one because, man, I don't know how. I mean, all right, so Texas's offense is fine. Switch the quarterbacks, totally different offense, right? In comes Thompson, in comes offense. They're playing pretty well up thus far. They have leaned on, unsurprisingly, non-stupidly on Bijan Robinson. But Steve Sarkisian is your head coach and play caller for this offense. They're at number 3 right now in beta rank, 8 in drive efficiency, 8 in explosive drives, 3 in negative drives. These are great numbers already for this Texas offense. Number 2 in effective rush, 50 in effective pass. I think with Thompson, they're gonna continue to improve this effective pass number as the season goes on. What's really fascinating, though, I mean, because I think this Texas offense is going to work. Sarkisian's a really good play caller. He's got some really talented players. He's going to get the best out of them. Man, what happened to TCU's defense this season? Because they stink, right? This is not a vintage Gary Patterson defense. That 33 projection right now, or that 33 is being held up entirely by projection because the under the hood numbers are really bad for this TCU defense. And maybe after this week with some adjustment for some of their opponents, these numbers take a really big step forward, but I don't think we're talking about like a top 20 defense. And usually with TCU, we're talking about a top 10 defense. So this is rough. 116 in drive efficiency. Teams have been able to put together long drives. 108 in explosive drives. Teams have been able to, put together really big plays. The play efficiency is not great. Negative drives, not enough turnovers, not enough 3 and outs. A lot better against the run, but they've been awful against the pass. And it's this run number will deteriorate, of course, as teams figure out that they can throw the ball against TCU. This feels like, in a normal everything's fine year, this is a matchup you'd really be looking forward to, right? Like you'd really be looking forward to seeing, Sarkisian in this offense with Robinson up against a Gary Patterson coach defense. Like that's a little bit of like X's and O's heaven. I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested. Like I want to see TCU's defense get up off the mat. And this is a game where you can potentially do it at home against a team that you have some ill feelings towards. The other side of the ball, TCU's offense is kind of working. It's not great. They're better than they were under Cumbie, in particular, but they their drive efficiencies are right. Again, like I think this is an opportunity. This is actually, I think, an opportunity for TCU. If you're sneaking a look over at the Texas numbers, I'm doing the wrong way, this way. So if you're sneaking a look over at the Texas numbers, they're not great. So TCU's got an opportunity in this game to move the ball and put up some points. They've been better at drive efficiency. They could certainly improve that explosive drives number. Where they've excelled is negative drives, not a lot of turnovers, not a lot of 3 and outs. Duggan is a solid runner when they involve him in the run game too. The run game's pretty good. 34 in effective rush. Some limitations as a passer. That's something they live with and could potentially work on too. And under Kwiatkowski, this defense is just not working in the season, and that's okay. I think he's still a really good DC pickup. I'm excited to see what Texas eventually becomes, but personnel wise, I just don't think he must not have what he wants, because this is not working right now and they're struggling in this scheme. 58 in beta rank right now, 53 in drive efficiency. Teams have been able to put together long drives. 59 in explosive drives. Teams have been able to put together big plays. Their play efficiency number is just awful. 94 in play efficiency. Their yards per play controlling for opponent field position is just terrible. Negative drives 109. That's not great. Not enough turnovers, not enough 3 and outs. 51 in effective rush, 68 in effective pass. TCU should be able to come into this game and move the ball, put up some points, keep this game in reach where a couple turnovers and they're in it. right? Texas is a 74% favorite on the road, 6.94 points in beta rank. I'm interested. I mean, there's some things to see out of this that I think I'm really interested to see. I mean, I have questions about where this TCU defense is going to settle once we get out of the sort of limited early season data. They certainly haven't looked like a vintage defense. So what we've seen on the field certainly confirms what we see in the limited data so far. But are they able to sort of bounce back and start building towards the rest of the season? And then this TCU offense, like, can they move the ball? And I mean, is this Texas defense going to put up any kind of fight in this game? I mean, TCU's offense is interesting. Meacham is a pretty decent offensive coordinator. Are they going to be able to move the ball more effectively? Effectively against Texas? And what do we see out of Kwiatkowski in this game? That they're able to put together. I mean, are they able to put it together and figure some things out on their end? We'll see. This should be one to tune in and check out. So that's it. I mean, I say this week is statistically significant because we do get a lot better read on teams coming out of this week, right? We have a really good handle, I think, on where teams are going to shake out, in a normal season with this much data. And of course, in a regular year, we don't have a completely bonkers, 2020, messing with the projections as much as we've had coming into this season. The projections are usually quite a bit better than we've had up to this point. So I'm excited to get to the in-season data. In all likelihood, we're full in season after this week. We'll see, which fits again best with projection or without coming in after this week. My guess is it's going to be though without projection, and we'll just take our lumps if we have them. Anyway, let's do the as I call them, the creds. Again, I'm Rob Bauer, and I'm the econometrician behind BetaRank. You can find all the stats you just saw and a whole lot more at sharpcollegefootball.com. I'm at BetaRank FB. I also handle the account at Sharp College Football. We have a Pac-12 podcast at 12 Pack Radio, and you can find all the back episodes of that at sharpcollegefootball.com/12 Pack Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the games out there today, and stay safe.